Dr. Mohler, what does a post-Roe society look like?
I think it's going to look very chaotic for a long time. For instance, just in the months leading up to the Dobbs decision, Americans are going to be able to say, well, you had a state like Oklahoma that legislatively banned all abortions. You can look at states, and it's very much a matter of red states and blue states. It's not absolute in the overlay, but it's the closest thing to it. And you're going to see states like Illinois, California, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, that are moving in the most liberal directions possible. And so it's like we're going to be in two Americas on the abortion issue. And look, we have to watch. Several things are going to happen. Number one, Democrats in the Congress will seek, as we've already seen, to legislate Roe. But even when they did that, the Schumer-Pelosi bill was even more radical than Roe. And then state by state, it's going to be an enormous battle. And it's because the logic of worldview works its way through. And so the logic of the pro-life position works through, thus Oklahoma. The logic of the pro-abortion argument, it works its way through, thus New York, California, where frankly they almost pay for any abortion and are actually talking about paying for abortions from people out of state. So this is going to be a monumental task.
Dr. Mohler, we've heard people inside the church say, yes, I'm pro-life, but we can't really focus on abortion. There's so many other issues we need to focus on. But why is a focus on abortion so foundational to having a biblical worldview for all of human life?
I'll simply go back to where Francis Schaeffer made the point so clearly right after Roe v. Wade when he said, if we don't know who a human being is, then who do we know who actually deserves standing to have rights? If you can deny the right of the unborn, you can deny the right to life of the aged, the infirm. And of course, the 20th century showed that even worse can happen with millions of deaths. And so, there is no more basic question than who is a human being and who deserves to be a life protected, preserved, a life that possesses dignity and sanctity. And so you can say, yes, there are other issues, but that's sort of like saying, we'll argue about tax policy and whether people should live, and like there's an equivalence. And we know tax policy is important, but we're going to have to get to that after we determine that every single human life is worthy of protection.
The overturn of Roe is certainly a reason and a cause for celebration, but we know the fight's not over. The church still is advancing. The church is still called to storm the gates of hell. What is the calling for this next chapter for the Church of Jesus Christ?
It's a long faithfulness. I think those of us who hold to a biblical worldview and even just the storyline of Scripture are reminded of the fact that there are no permanent victories in this fallen world. And I think that there are going to be two responses Christians are going to be tempted to kind of step into after Roe. One is celebration as if the battle's over, when actually the hard part is really then beginning, and that's convincing Americans state by state that we're going to have to uphold the dignity and sanctity of every life. I think there are also some real dangers that Christians, after Roe v. Wade, is reversed, and then abortion's not over coast to coast, they think, what were we fighting for all these years? And so I have to worry about Christians who are overly elated as if the battle's over, and those who will be, I think, quite genuinely depressed because there's a long battle ahead. This is where the Christian worldview really helps us, because you take Ephesians chapter 6, Paul's famous chapter on spiritual warfare. He reminds us we battle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. So he didn't say this happens every once in a while, then it's over and the church can go on. That's the way it is until Jesus comes. It's a good thing that we know that.
Dr. Mohler, thank you so much for your time, for your leadership, and your important voice in this cultural moment.
Rob, thankful for you. Honored to be with you today.